Hi guys, my name is Lexi. This is my first video. Today I really wanted to talk about Again But Better by Christine Riccio. It's her new book that just came out, her first book. I have a lot of thoughts about this book and I've kind of not seen a lot of videos about it, so I wanted to make one myself and talk about it because I have some things to say. I just want to say, like, not bashing this book. I'm not bashing Christine Riccio. I'm not bashing anybody that likes this book. I just want to talk about it. And I did actually like it. I just want to have a discussion, and that's all. That's it. This video will contain major spoilers for this book because I want to talk about like everything that happens in the plot and just kind of otherwise chat about it. So, but yeah, major spoilers. If you haven't read it and want to, don't watch this video. Otherwise, buckle up. So Again But Better is about Shane. She's 20 years old and she moves to London to do a semester abroad. And she's doing an internship like with a travel magazine. She wants to be a writer. So she's lied to her parents and told them that she's doing like a pre-med, med school prep course thing in London, which is a lie. She's doing like a creative writing course and doing her writing internship. She lives with Babe, Sarah, Atticus, and Pilot. Shane quickly develops a crush on Pilot, whose personality is he plays guitar and is nice and handsome. They bond over like music and stuff, and they do errands around London and like just basically have like fun little times. She also becomes friends with Babe, who is her roommate. So about like a week or so into their semester abroad, it is revealed that Pilot has a girlfriend back home that he does not like at all. We'll talk about this more later. Doesn't like her, really. Shane is surprised by this and kind of dismayed because she thought they were sort of flirting. Anyway, so the first bit of the book is kind of the roommate group traveling around together, and they go to Rome and Paris and have fun European adventures. Meanwhile, Shane and Pilot continue to sort of bond. Nothing like overtly romantic happens, but they are really getting on. She starts her internship at a travel magazine. Her boss kind of floats the idea to her that near the end of her internship, maybe she could write a big article for their magazine, because Shane writes a travel blog while she's abroad, and Shane like sends them the blog, so they know that she likes to do that kind of stuff. So that kind of is dangled in front of her for later. Maybe you can write this story, and she's really excited about that. About halfway, I would say, through their semester, Amy, Pilot's girlfriend that he doesn't like at all, shows up in London to stay with him for a few days, basically only minutes ahead of Shane's parents showing up to surprise her. Shane, of course, is stressed and uncomfortable because she's been lying to them this whole time about what she's doing here. The parents find out basically that Shane's been lying to them at dinner, so all the roommates and the parents and Amy all go to dinner, and this kind of story unravels. Her dad, like not exaggerating, goes ballistic, like freaks out. He's like screaming in the restaurant. He smashes her cell phone, and the whole thing is actually quite unnerving, like unsettling. Like you're kind of like, Jesus. Her parents just leave, like storm out, like leave London, like they go home, and they're kind of just like, we're done with you, like blah 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 blah. So they're not happy. They just storm out. Shane's humiliated and upset, and she just leaves also, and yeah, it's kind of a not a good scene. Throughout the rest of the book, Shane will keep apologizing to her parents. Like she always emails them, and like every time something happens to her, she emails them to tell them, and they kind of just like they only rarely answer her and are just like, we can't forgive you. And it's like, get a grip, like Jesus. This is never really addressed again, this like particularly her father like raging out at her in front of all her friends. I was really waiting for Shane to be like, to heck with you guys. Anyway, and then to top it off, when Shane gets back to their apartment, she finds Amy reading her diaries, like Shane's diaries, in which she's written about Pilot, and how she like has a crush on him, and also just like other personal things, you know, like maybe don't read people's diaries. Yeah, so Shane's really upset about the past couple of days. She quits her internship at the writing magazine, and then she just kind of hunkers down. She's focusing on med school, and she's like focusing on MCAT prep and stuff like that. And then she just basically waits until it's time to go home. On her last night, she decides that she's going to tell Pilot how she feels about him, but she chickens out. She doesn't do it. And then she goes to the airport to go home, has a last minute change of heart, and goes back and is like, I'm going to tell him, but he is already gone. So they never get to express their feelings to each other. Bummer. I should say, kind of like reoccurring in this section of the book, Shane repeatedly runs into this mysterious British woman who, like, she sits next to Shane on the plane to London. Shane sees her as a barista in a coffee shop in London, and then again in like Rome and in Paris. And Shane is like, are you following me? And the woman's just very like, oh, I don't. Meanwhile, so that happens. They all part ways in London, and it's 2017 now, so 6 years later. Shane is doing med school interviews and has a boyfriend, Melvin, who she also doesn't like at all. Melvin actually proposes to Shane, or like has just proposed to her when we joined her in 2017. She tells him that she has to think about it because she doesn't say this part, but to us, we know it's because she wants to get closure with Pilot. I understand wanting closure. Girl, like she has not seen or spoken to him in 6 years since they left London. Also, they never dated or kissed or anything, and he's still with Amy, so that's something. Anyway, not the point. Do you, girl. She tracks Pilot down, like, to his workplace. He also lives in New York, and so she goes to find him and invites him to go for coffee, and they go for coffee at this weird little coffee shop. She kind of confesses that she still thinks about him and like their time in London, and she asks him if he wishes they could go back and do things differently, and he's kind of like, well, I'm with Amy, but he's kind of like, yeah, but we can't. It turns out at the cafe, their waitress is the British chick from the first section of the book. They kind of have a little bit of an argument where he's like, stop trying to mess up my life. Like, I don't know you. Like, we haven't talked in 6 years. Who do you think you are? Which is like super fair. They both leave the restaurant together, and when they're in the elevator stalls. They are like, oh no, and then there's a huge bang, and then they wake up and it's 2011. So Shane wakes up as her 2017 self in her 2011 body, I guess, in London, on her computer, writing on her blog, and is just like, what the heck? Pilot also came back with her. So they're both transported back to 2011. They're both super freaked out, understandably. They're in 2011, they run into the British lady, and she's like, yep, you get a do-over, but just so you know, there is a reset button if you change your mind and want to go back to 2017. You just hit the reset button, and you'll both go back to 2017, and you won't remember that this happened, so it's like it never happened. And they're like, okay, well, we can't stay in 2011, that would be ridiculous. We need to find the buttons so we can go back to the present. So in what I kind of thought was a weird narrative choice, the book basically just repeats exactly the first part of the book again because they're reliving it, but it's so similar. Like, they don't do anything differently. They still go to Paris, they still go to Rome, they still do, shawarma night and things like that. So it was, at this point, I thought this was the part of the book that kind of dragged for me a bit because I literally was like, I just read this. There is some differences, obviously, because they're both like in a 2017 mindset. They're both like, haha, this is so weird. They do have their first kiss in Rome, which obviously didn't happen the first time. And then the next day when they're in Rome, Shane finds the reset button. But of course now she doesn't want to press it because she is kissing Pilot in 2011. So they agree to hold off on hitting the button, like hitting the reset button, and they promise to only do it when they both agreed. Pilot, though, breaks up with Amy, which is nice, good, finally, progress. This section of the book basically is literally the first half of the book, except now Pilot and Shane get to make out, like, and snuggle, which is nice, but I did find that part kind of repetitive. Sorry, I have to sneeze. They get back from Paris and are just like, living it up as a couple in love. But because they're now like hooking up, they oversleep one morning, and Shane wakes up to realize that they both overslept for the first day of their internships. And she's like, oh my god, blah, blah, blah. She rushes to work, and then no, but because of this, because she's like 2 hours late, she kind of gets off on the wrong foot at her internship. And because of this, she doesn't get the opportunity to write that big article at the end of her internship that she was so excited about in the first timeline. So meanwhile, back at home, Pilot's supposedly ex-girlfriend, Amy, shows up in London. Turns out Pilot broke up with her over voicemail, and she never got the message, and then he never followed up with her, like, so he thought they were broken up and left her a voicemail. She never got it and has now flown out to surprise him. Boys, am I right? Actually, and this part of the book is very good. Shane at this point sort of has like a come to Jesus and is like, God, like, this is crazy. Like, what's going on is crazy. She's kind of like, you know, what are we doing? She says, Pilot, this isn't working for me anymore. He said, what's not working? This. You know, like, everything's been really great for us, but Pilot, I'm losing myself here. I'm losing myself and I'm becoming us. I think that's really important to point out, especially, like, this is Shane's first relationship. That's like a very common thing in a first serious relationship. Like, you're so into the other person, like, which is fine. It's fine. It's great to be in love, but you know, you can sometimes move really fast in a first relationship like that. She says, here is hurting me, Pilot. I can't choose us because I need to choose me. I'm not ready for this. It's a really good section of Shane being quite self-aware, which is something I really appreciate in books. This is actually very well done, this section, because she goes on to say, like, you know, I haven't been writing, I haven't been working on my blog, I've been texting you when I'm at work, and I haven't been spending any time with Babe. Like, Babe, who became her, in the first timeline, Babe became her best friend and then is still her best friend in 2017. Like, they are still friends, but like now in this version, like they're not super good friends, so like she possibly won't even have that relationship in 2017. So she's like, I've just been putting you ahead of everything, and like I haven't even realized, but so much of my life has gone to the wayside. It's very subtle, but it is well done, because when you're reading this, you don't realize that she's not writing and she's not blogging and she's not spending time with Babe, because it's from her point of view. So, but like, you kind of look back and you're like, oh yeah, like all that time in the first section, like the first timeline, she would always be writing and blah, blah, blah. Now she's just hanging out with Pilot. So that is, I think, very well done and very good. That's definitely the peak of the book for me. Like, the author did a really good job showing how you can kind of get so tangled up in your relationship and you don't really realize the effect it's having on your life. So she has that great line about choosing herself over Pilot, and she's like, I want to go back to 2017 and sort my life out, and I'm gonna hit the reset button. And Pilot's crying and he's like, no. She breaks up with him. She runs out onto the street and presses the button, and I was like, yes, we're going back to 2017, like, let's go. And then no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And then the British lady appears and is like, hey, yeah, you're not ready. It's not your time yet. So that was a bit not disappointing. We'll talk about time travel and how it's used in this book a bit later. But sorry, it'll only work when you're ready. Like, you both are ready. She actually says the word y'all, and I didn't really think that was a thing British people said. But hey, Shane is like, I'm not going down like this. And she just like goes back to her internship and is like, hey, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to get back in with my internship. And she like sends an email to all her colleagues and is like, hey, let me know if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. And she's like really putting it in her all, and they're quite impressed with her, da, da, da. Shane's parents visit and find out that she was lying, and Shane's just like, deal with it. Like, this is how it's gonna be. Like, yeah, I lied, but you know, in 2017, we know that Shane never really repaired that her relationship with her parents. Like, obviously, like, they love each other, but she's kind of just like, we never like got past that. Also, like, I think she's putting in way more effort than they deserve. Like, you guys are being not fair. Anyway, so she like says in an email or whatever, she's just like, I'm not gonna stop. Like, we're gonna make up, basically. Like, deal with it. She gets to write her article and it gets published for the magazine, and she's super jazzed. Her colleagues at the travel magazine set her up with an internship in New York City for when she goes home. She's been working a ton on her own book, like a novel of hers. So life's good for Shane. She's really sorted herself out. And then the British lady appears and is like, hey, you're ready now. Like, if you've done everything for yourself, if you want to go back to 2017, now you can. Shane's like, yeah, I'm just going to do this one last thing. And she goes on like kind of like a solo, like finding yourself hike, walkabout in Scotland, I believe. She is like climbing a mountain and Pilot appears. She hasn't seen him in like 4 months or whatever. He appears with his guitar and he's prepared for her a 3, song Taylor Swift concert with modified lyrics so that they're about her. Yeah. He, wins her back. They decide to scrap the reset button, and they decide to relive 2011 to 2017 again, together. Like, they're gonna we'll just do it again as a couple, which is a choice for sure. Yeah. And then the epilogue is Shane at her book launch for her novel. Her parents are there being supportive, so like obviously they've sorted themselves out. And Pilot proposes to her at the end. And that's what happens in this book. It's a ride. There is highs and lows, I would say. Parts where I was like, oh, this is like really good, really cute. And then other parts where I was just like, is that clear for you? I love when I just don't use words. So we're going to talk about things I like and things I didn't like. And then there is a kind of a section I have in here that's going to be things that didn't do it for me. Not necessarily things I didn't like, but it's like, oh. Things I liked, I like Shane. She's like a good character, and she's a realistic character. Shane is relatable, I think, and she does really remind me of myself in 2011. Like when I was annoying. I'm sorry. Shane is endearing and realistic. And like I was like Shane, I think, a bit. I think I've mellowed out a bit, but Shane is a well done, nerdy 2011 girl. So I think that's interesting. What else did I like? Oh, there was a couple like little comparisons between do-overs, like how Shane particularly did things differently between like 2011 the first time and 2011 the second time. And a couple of them are like kind of cute and that I like. So in the first 2011 timeline, when Shane flies to Rome, she's sitting next to this drunk couple on the plane, and they're just like being silly and drunk, and Shane's kind of like, oh. And Shane's kind of like, oh my goodness, like I'm scandalized by their drunkenness, like gosh. But then in the 2011 redo, she's like also drinking with them, and I just thought that was really cute and like really relatable, because it's like, girl, same. Also, I think the author did a good job using like unique little descriptions. She did dialogue tags well, I thought. Little phrases that just kind of like jump out at you as like, oh, that's like a nice little description. Like a laugh blew out of Pilot. There's a line that's like, his thumb skated circles on my palm or whatever. It's like just cute little things like that. Oh, also I love time travel. I love time travel. So anything with time travel, sign me up. Like a book could be terrible, but if there's time travel in it, I'm like, I like it. So I like that. I also really liked the ages of the characters. Like I think it's really good and refreshing to read about characters in their 20s, rather than reading about characters that are 17 and like going on exciting trips and falling in love and all this crazy stuff where it's like, that's just not realistic. And anyway, so it was nice to read about people in their 20s. You can still like have firsts in your 20s. Like you're not old when you're not 17 anymore, you know? So I really like the ages. It's nice to read about people in their 20s and not read about a 16-year-old and feel inadequate because you haven't done all this stuff that a 16-year-old has done. So nice. I like that. As I mentioned like 2 seconds ago, I loved the scene when Shane tells Pilot that things aren't working. Like I just thought that was a really good, powerful moment for Shane. Things I did not like, unfortunately, there were some. I hate the name Pilot so much. Every time I read it with my eyes, I was like, and then she starts calling him Pies, like short for Pilot, and I ascended to another plane of reality because I hated it. I'm sorry, I hate it. God. I also didn't really like that Shane was literally Christine Riccio. I mean, even in the author's note, the author says like, this book is fiction, but it's inspired by me, which is fine, but it is, and it's also like not even like subtle. Like it is, she is her. They look physically the same. They like the same things. Like Shane loves Harry Potter and Taylor Swift and the Mortal Instruments and Lost, like Christine does. They both want to write a book. And then like kind of the big one is that Christine has this online persona and then so does Shane, and their usernames are like a play off one another basically. So I literally was just like, anyway, it's kind of a lot, but hey, it's not subtle, so I mean, do what you want, I guess. I found the pop culture references in this book super cringy, like really, 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 like to the point when I was like going through this book a second time to make this video, I can't. And they just kind of get worse. Some of them are fine and cute and I liked them. Like Shane calls her journals Horcruxes, like from Harry Potter, and I thought that was funny. And she's also obsessed with Lost, which I don't know, I really like Lost, so it was really funny. Like her and Pilot talk about it. But hearing Shane in dialogue say like, oh, my favorite song is All Too Well by Taylor Swift, and then Pilot like says the lyrics back to her in the dialogue, it just didn't work for me. And I love Taylor Swift, so, and I love the song All Too Well, you know, so it just was kind of like, ah, God. And this is nitpicky, but in that same scene when they're talking about their favorite song, Pilot says that his favorite song is Holy Branches by Radical Faith, but he says The Radical Faith, which is not what that band's called, so I thought it was weird. Like, if you're gonna be that specific, maybe say the right band name. At the end, when Pilot sings the Taylor Swift songs to her, I couldn't handle it. And I don't know if this made it more cringy, but they weren't like well-known Taylor Swift songs, really. Like, I think one of them was You Belong With Me, but like I think the other two were just like non-singles. Anyway, this is like getting way in there. But like the page was just all lyrics, like of him singing. Like he sang the whole song to her and I had to read it with my eyes and be like, maybe it's worth because I know the songs. I don't know. Like if you didn't know the songs, maybe you wouldn't find it as cringy because you'd just be like, what is this? But yeah, I don't like that. There's also a part where Shane explains to Pilot about the okay bit from The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, and she's like saying, oh, like we need to have an okay. So they're trying to decide on a word that's going to be their okay. And what about lamppost, I propose? It's innocent, catchy. Lamppost? Yeah, as in lamppost will be our always. They just go lamppost, and I hate it. I'm sorry. It's true. This is only like a half point because I really don't like the like cheating trope or like the guy has a girlfriend thing. So, and I knew that was a part of this book, so I was hesitant going into it. I kind of was like, oh, like, but it's definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and it's not as bad as some books I could mention. It's actually quite well done. Like it works for the story because Shane and Pilot never act on anything other than like they hold hands at one point. They have like a lot of tension because they never express it, which works really well because since they never do have an affair, it lends itself quite nicely for them to, 6 years later be like, do you wish we could have done things differently? I don't even hate it. I just think it's hilarious when there's the trope where the boy has a girlfriend that he just hates. Like he doesn't like her at all. There's no reason that they're together other than so she's an obstacle for the main character. Like Pilot is talking about his girlfriend and he's like, yeah, we've only been together for 3 months and like I tried to break up with her before I moved here, but she said no. They're talking about boyfriends and girlfriends like as a group, and Shane says she's never had a boyfriend because she's never dated someone that she's liked enough to date, like to be in a relationship with, and Pilot just goes, same. Also, not to be a dick, but I do feel like I need to mention this because I did find it really distracting while I was reading, and this is not the author's fault, it's literally the editor's job. This book has so many typos. This book has so many typos, like a distracting amount of typos. I'm good at picking up on typos, like picking them out. I used to work as a fiction editor and it is, something that I notice, but like I wasn't being nitpicky. Like sometimes I can be nitpicky, I will admit. This book is riddled with errors, like genuine typos. I couldn't believe it. Shane calls her journals Horcruxes, but the word Horcrux is misspelled in this book at least 3 times, and 3 times is what I noticed reading it. once. So her colleague Tracy, her name is misspelled at least twice. Her teacher's name is misspelled. Cousin's name is misspelled. Anyway, it's just like quite unfortunate. It also sort of adds to my feeling about this book. There were a lot of parts I felt that it could have been cleaned up or smoothed out or even just cut. And I kind of, reading this book, just feel like the editors were just like, do your thing. Like, I think they were just like, go for it. And that's not her fault. Like, sorry, that sounds really harsh, but I can't believe the amount of mistakes that are in this book, which sucks. These are just kind of like general things that I have sort of a problem with. The book starts with an author's note about how there's nothing wrong with you if you haven't kissed a boy by the time you're in your 20s or whatever, which is like super important, like great message. Like, I relate to that so hard. And as I mentioned earlier, like, it's great to read about people in their 20s rather than people that are 16 doing like crazy stuff, you know? So I really liked that. It's super true, super important, and it's an idea that the author is also very passionate about, and she's like talked about it in her videos. But I didn't necessarily find that played into this book very much. Shane, you know, wants to have her first kiss. She's never been kissed when she goes to London, and she writes in her journal like it's one of her goals for the semester abroad that she wants to get kissed. And her first kiss kind of ends up being a random guy at a bar, and she's just like, yeah, whatever. I did like that. So I like that she didn't like freak out that her first kiss was ruined or whatever. She's just kind of like, oh yeah, that was nice. It was fine. And then when she kisses Pilot later on, she's like, oh no, this is like what kissing should be like. But paired with this author note, I don't find the message quite marries up for me. I wish Shane had kind of had a moment to be like, oh, like I don't need to kiss someone to feel validated. I also think the time travel in this book was used weirdly. I knew that time travel was like the twist. The premise was her getting a do-over. So I figured, you know, that it would be about her going back in time and, you know, knowing what, you know, in her 2017 mindset, going back and being outgoing and taking charge and living life to the fullest. You should have like seen my face when she goes back and Pilot is also there back in time with her. I was like, wait, Pilot is in on it too? Like, he also goes back in time? If they're both gonna be back in 2011 with their current minds, why did it need to be in 2011? They could have just reconciled in 2017. Like, I was so surprised because I thought it was going to be about her doing things differently, not them both being like, we're back here. Anyway, it was kind of a weird choice. Other than breaking up with Amy, nothing really different happened until nothing really different happened until Shane kind of took charge and sorted some things out for herself. But like, that was only at the very end. So, I don't know. And it was just like the same storyline, but with their 2017 versions. A weird time travel theory that I had, buckle up, this is weird. So there's a scene where Shane goes to a bookstore and she finds a Harry Potter book and there's a note in it, which is like a thing people used to do. And inside it's like, Hogwarts will always be there to welcome you home. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, please. Because I googled it. That's like a quote from J.K. Rowling at the Deathly Hallows Part 2 premiere in London. Like, that's like, she like famously said that. But Shane finds this note in January of 2011 and the premiere wasn't until July 2011. So I was like, there's more time travelers. Like, they left a note. And then nothing like that happened. So, I don't know. Probably just a mistake. Yeah, I guess I'm super conflicted about this book. I feel like it had so much potential to be a really great coming of age story because it was perfectly set up to be like, okay, how would I have done my early 20s differently knowing what I know now? But I don't really think they did that much differently. We get bits of it, like we do get the parts where Shane is like, I haven't been writing, I haven't been blogging, I haven't been making these friendships. I wanted that to be the ending. I wanted that to be, you know, Shane's growth moment. Growing up is about learning from your mistakes. I wanted the ending to be Shane realizing that, you know, you don't get do-overs and that's life. Maybe her and Pilot don't get back together and, you know, Shane's happy ending is her book getting published and she's reconciled with her parents and she's just, you know, did everything she wanted to do and Pilot is just like a nice memory and there's no bad blood. You know, one last Taylor Swift reference for you. So in conclusion, I am conflicted about this book. There's parts I really liked and there's parts I really didn't. Read it yourself. Buy this book. I'd be interested to see what the author writes next. Please subscribe and comment and fight with me if you want to. I'm going to try to make new videos every week. I won't, but I'm going to try. Yeah.